We're wrapped up. Guys, the pool, let's head out. Come on, thank you very much. Tight pool. Out this way, guys.
You've been looking at pictures here down on Capitol Hill. First, the White House here was abuzz, of course, with Donald Trump meeting with President Obama, and we'll get there in just a second. But and I'm Brooke Baldwin. Thank you so much for being with me on this, yet again, another historic day here in our nation's capital. Let me just bring in my panel, and we'll parse through what we just saw quickly. Douglas Brinkley, Dana Bash, David Chalian, and Martha Joint Kumar. Dana, that was your home away from home for many, many years down on Capitol Hill. And to see, and we'll throw the photo back up if we can, or the video. You had Melania Trump, Donald Trump, Speaker Ryan, and Mike Pence. And what I could make out was we'll work together. So again, these messages of unity.
I just remember Paul Ryan being in a press briefing with Paul Ryan towards the beginning of the presidential primary season, and he was making it abundantly clear, without saying it, that he didn't think there was a snowball's chance in where that this moment would ever happen.
Well, we're staring at it.
And it happened. And it happened. So here we are. And I think, look, I've been trying to sort of think about the way politics works, think about the moment, and, been trying to sort of approach this in a very much a glass half full way, in that in Paul Ryan and Donald Trump, you have a policy wonk and a deal maker. And there's nothing that Paul Ryan likes more than to dig into tax reform, than to dig into, budget reform. Then he has a past of digging into immigration reform and wanting immigration reform. And then you have Donald Trump, who wants to be successful.
Right.
I mean, getting the presidency was just the beginning of the prize, but he wants to do it right. And he actually made that clear a lot on the stump. It got lost in a lot of the Trumpisms that we heard throughout the primary and the general election. But he made it very clear he wants to do it right if he gets in. And so I think that they're a very unlikely partnership, but could be a successful one if they approach it that way.
I was thinking about the same thing, how he is such a policy wonk, and how you saw Speaker Ryan not too long ago standing in front of reporters with, papers and stacks, and I'm thinking, well, that's not necessarily the Donald Trump that we know.
You haven't been briefed unless you had a PowerPoint from Paul Ryan.
I miss that.
I'll just say, just stepping back and looking, these images that are coming into us from Capitol Hill, there you see the President Donald Trump earlier today. These last 36 hours, it's been kind of amazing to me. For a campaign season that never followed the script, the last 36 hours have all been on script.
So true.
Starting with Donald Trump's victory speech and the gracious notes he made about Hillary Clinton's concession and the desire to bring the country together, followed by Hillary Clinton's concession speech yesterday morning, followed by President Obama's remarks in the Rose Garden to really try to bring the country together, and to this day today in Washington of the very
actually, let me jump in. Let's see if we can eavesdrop.
Oh, wow.
2x4 down there. That is just great plan to be strong. So this is the amphitheater that's going to have Congress, Joint Chiefs, Supreme Court, all sitting in these bleachers. And then that platform down there with a 2x4 railing is where you will be sworn in. And this white scaffolding is going to be cameras, TV. This is basically the view. And then this is just it's going to be a whole lot colder than this today. Yeah, that's it right there. That's supposed to be the second and so the trees by that's the Treasury Department, the trees in the White House. So the White House is straight at Pennsylvania here. Those trees are so you're part of the design.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey guys, let's head on out.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You just can't. It's like photo after photo after photo. And, to see the president-elect and the first lady to be, showing them the lay of the land down the road.
And that's called the Speaker's balcony because it's the Speaker's balcony. And
one of the best views in Washington.
One of the best views in Washington, almost as good as this. John Boehner, obviously Paul Ryan's predecessor, it was his favorite thing to do. No matter who came, he would take them out and look at it.
I remember seeing Speaker Boehner and the Pope. Isn't that?
Exactly. There you have it again. And obviously Paul Ryan has the same feeling about it. And he's literally giving him a lay of the land. I mean, he's not figuratively, literally giving him a lay of the land. Couldn't hear exactly what he was saying, but what they're doing is they're pointing straight up Pennsylvania Avenue.
Hey, there's my hotel.
To this, right. I was just going to say, and in between where they are and this behind us, the White House, is the Trump Hotel.
Dana, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what we also see there is the inaugural platform starting to be built.
It's already
on that side of the Capitol.
Maybe that's
and
the
I believe,
banging.
I believe what Speaker Ryan is also showing the Trumps is where he's going to take the oath of office and become president.
You are correct, sir.
And I'll just in terms of, I'm sure you're exactly right, as usual, David, but underneath where they are, just in terms of the geography of the Capitol, about 2 floors down is exactly where the president-elect walks out to the stanchion. Yeah, you can see they are building it there to the stanchion where he is sworn in, and it's right down there. They walk through the crypt and then out the door. And I actually sometimes, I mean, I'm going to dork out right now.
Totally sneak out there and look.
Yeah, well, just also to take the walk that the president takes and to walk around the crypt and to walk out that door and to see what he sees at the day of the inaugural is really cool.
70 days away, ish, right?
Ish.
Douglas Brinkley, you're watching all of this with us as a historian. You are watching history unfold. What strikes you about all this photo here?
The amount of civility that's being seen today in Washington, and it's sorely needed. The country's feeling very divided. I think Donald Trump's really on a listening tour. I hope in the coming days he might meet with Congressman John Lewis. Lewis famously was beaten during the Freedom Rides and marched to Selma. And in recent years with his group called Politics and Faith, he met and hugged the people that actually beat him. John Lewis. He's a moral symbol on Capitol Hill. It would behoove Donald Trump to meet with him, perhaps have a meeting down the line with Bernie Sanders, talk to him about some issues, just listen some. And I think Donald Trump's doing that today. And President Obama is going to go out with very high marks. He's at a 55% approval rating. By the time of the Trump inaugural, he'll be at about 60% approval rating. And because he's showing us what a class act he is today, the transition to power is essential, and we're watching it happen in its first phases today.
We just heard from President Obama talking not 24 hours ago about how smooth and professional the transition was, right, from Bush 43 and then on to him, and the proverbial passing of the baton. And then, of course, let's take a couple steps back. In the historic moment, we saw the president and president-elect sitting in the Oval Office in the West Wing earlier this morning. Let's listen to that conversation.
Well, I just had the opportunity to have an excellent conversation with President-elect Trump. It was wide-ranging. We talked about some of the organizational issues in setting up a White House. We talked about foreign policy. We talked about domestic policy. And as I said last night, my number one priority in the coming 2 months is to try to facilitate a transition that ensures our president-elect is successful. I have been very encouraged by the, I think, interest in President-elect Trump's wanting to work with my team around many of the issues that this great country faces. And I believe that it is important for all of us, regardless of party and regardless of political preferences, to now come together, work together, to deal with the many challenges that we face. And in the meantime, Michelle has had a chance to greet the incoming First Lady, and we had an excellent conversation with her as well. And we want to make sure that they feel welcome as they prepare to make this transition. And most of all, I want to emphasize to you, Mr. President-elect, that we now are going to want to do everything we can to help you succeed, because if you succeed, then the country succeeds. Please, sir.
Well, thank you very much, President Obama. This was a meeting that was going to last for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and we were just going to get to know each other. We had never met each other. I have great respect. The meeting lasted for almost an hour and a half, and it could have, as far as I'm concerned, it could have gone on for a lot longer. We really, we discussed a lot of different situations, some wonderful and some difficulties. I very much look forward to dealing with the president in the future, including counsel. He explained some of the difficulties, some of the high-flying assets, and some of the really great things that have been achieved. So, Mr. President, it was a great honor being with you, and I look forward to being with you many, many more times in the future. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody. We are not going to be taking any questions. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Here's a good rule. Don't answer questions when they just start. It's always the last one. Come on, guys.
Little piece of advice there between the president and the president-elect. I mean, these are wow moments. These are moments when words and tone and body language matter. Martha, let me bring your voice into this conversation, because all this talk of transitions, you were in charge of that transition between Bush 43 and President Obama 8 years ago. When you look at those pictures, when you listen to the words, the meeting was supposed to last 15 minutes. It lasted for an hour and a half. Do you feel hopeful?
I do, and I thought they discussed a broad range of things. They discussed foreign policy issues, which is a very traditional thing for a president to do, to transition himself, as Bush did to President Obama. But I noticed he also talked about the White House staff. And setting up your White House staff early is particularly important, because that's your decision-making structure. And you want to make sure that in all the decisions you make, that you have the kinds of information that you want, but also the kinds of information you need, which may involve hearing from a lot of other, maybe outside groups, but also government departments that have information that might be relevant to the decisions you're making in terms of appointments. And so you want to have a White House structure in place, and it's not easy, because while you have an opportunity at the very beginning of the administration to reorganize a White House, a better opportunity than you have later on. At the same time, you don't have people that have the experience and knowledge of being in a White House and how it should be organized. So
let me just jump in and interrupt everyone. That's Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Let's dip in. Can we listen? We're just walking past.
Well, we attempted a question time.
Forgive me, we're juggling. This is how live TV works. We'll stay on these pictures and see if they walk up to any microphones. Go ahead, Dana.
So they're walking, obviously, around that corner there. Behind where you're seeing is the Senate chamber, and they're walking actually towards the House side, but that's where Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader's office, is. It's right there. So the President-elect went from the Speaker's balcony underneath and up and around, so that he could get, a little bit of a tour there. And you do see that Mike Pence is there. I wonder if when they came up, they took a peek into what Mike Pence's office will be, because he is going to be the president of the Senate, which has an office right near where they're standing.
Have we seen anything like this before? A president-elect being walked around the sort of central grounds of Washington? Or is it just because he's never held office, he just isn't familiar?
No, I think we've seen these pictures before. A president-elect meeting with the congressional leadership that they will be working with when they come president. I was just wondering, though, I don't know if we've seen the incoming First Lady partake in these meetings. I was, as you just said that, Brooke, I was trying to rack my brain to remember if I saw Michelle Obama or Laura Bush join their president-elect husbands in these meetings with congressional leaders. I don't know if you recall, Dana.
I don't. I mean, I don't think so, but I don't know for sure. But I think, to your point, in recent history, at least, obviously President Obama was a sitting senator, so he didn't exactly need a tour of the Senate. And most people are creatures of Washington or politics that know that. So, yes, this is ceremonial, symbolic, but for Donald Trump, it's also like, oh, this is where the Senate is, and that's where my office is, things that other people just know coming in.
I think this is all just incredibly, forgive me, I'm almost speechless just listening to all of this. Manu Raju, this is your home away from home, Capitol Hill. What do you know about these meetings and how they're going? Manu, can you hear me? It's Brooke. You're live on CNN.
Hey, Brooke. We're still getting details of that meeting. It looked like that it went reasonably well, just judging by the body language. You saw pictures of Donald Trump going out into the speaker's balcony, getting a little tour of the speaker's balcony. In fact, we did not get any guidance ahead of time that was actually happening. So you would have to presume if this meeting was going poorly that would not happen. But as we know, going into this meeting, the two men wanted to discuss areas in which they could work together, which they could hit the ground running, and where their agendas align. One of the things that Republican leaders thought about going into this meeting is exactly what does Donald Trump want to do. He pushed a lot of issues that were very controversial and divisive on the campaign trail, like building a wall with the border in U.S. and Mexico. If he came out pushing that could be something that could prompt a war within his own party and certainly among Democrats as well. So I expected you could hear going in that Paul Ryan wants to push things that could unite the Republican Party, some ideas that could presumably get Democratic support, like an infrastructure bill. And you can bet that they discussed how exactly to go about their shared goal about repealing Obamacare. Now, Brooke, that is something that they could do, take a significant chunk out of the Obamacare law through the budget process, but that could take several months to get accomplished. But they don't really have anything to replace it with yet, at least not anything specifically detailed in legislation. They have some broad policy ideas. So presumably they talked about that, how to deal with Obamacare. And as you just saw right now, Paul Ryan or Donald Trump walking with the next person on his meeting list, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, heading into his meeting as well. So important for their decision-making going forward about how to deal with this slew of cabinet appointments that the Senate has to take up very soon into the new administration, as well as what to do about that Supreme Court justice. Mitch McConnell said he was going to give some suggestions to Donald Trump about who he could select for that 9th Supreme Court slot. So you can expect that to come up a lot. But McConnell, too, Brooke, does not necessarily want Donald Trump to do things that are divisive and that could divide the Republican Party. They want to show some unity right out of the gate, which is one reason why they're having these meetings today, Brooke.
Listening to you on unity, also just on how he's listening, a quick note, and I think, Dana, this is about what you were going to say about Melania Trump and Donald Trump walking hand in hand, holding hands through, Capitol Hill. I want to hear from you in a second, but let's just rewind for a moment and dip in and listen to the conversation between Speaker Ryan and President-elect Trump.
We're going to do some absolutely spectacular things for the American people. We look forward to starting. In fact, truthfully, we can't get started fast enough. And whether it's healthcare or immigration, so many different things. We'll be working on them very rapidly, and I think we'll be putting things up pretty quickly. So we had a very good meeting, a very detailed meeting, and we're going to lower taxes, as you know, and we're going to fix health care and make it more affordable and better. And we're going to do a real job for the public, and that's what we want to do, and that's why we're excited.
Thank you. All right. So Doug Brinkley, I know you have to run, so let me just come back to you. And as we're watching all of these sort of firsts here in Washington, D.C., I know that with regard to transitions, there have been parallels of this transition, the Obama-Trump transition, parallel to perhaps Carter and Reagan, and how when Reagan came in, he yanked all those solar panels right off of the White House, and not much talking between the first ladies in the limo down on Inauguration Day. Is that a fair comparison, or should the country really give Donald Trump more credit than that?
Well, I think Donald Trump's doing a good job today, and Barack Obama. This is not 1980, the way Carter and Reagan just started not getting along. It's very clear for Barack Obama that he is somebody who believes in reconciliation. He is a student of Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King, and he's got to heal the country right now. The wounds are deep. Gerald Ford called his memoir A Time to Heal. Today we are witnessing a healing day, a lesson in civility, and the world is watching. It's not just about what they're whispering to each other right now. It's sending a wide message that the United States is here, that this election's over, and that we're going to have a sense of unity and purpose. We're not Republicans, we're not Democrats today, but we're Americans.
We are Americans. Doug Brinkley, thank you so much as always. We are going to sneak a quick commercial break in, but you really can't turn away from this. I'm Brooke Baldwin here in Washington, D.C. with David Chalian and Dana Bash walking you through these firsts, both at the White House and on Capitol Hill with President-elect Donald Trump and his First Lady-to-be here in Washington.